All right, Zig coming in on the top. Today on the show, we have an epic one. We have Willie Nile. Willie Nile is a singer-songwriter guitarist based out of Buffalo, New York. He's had a 45-year-long career that is still going, and he still has as much energy and passion as when he first started. Maybe even more now. Here's a few accolades of about Willie before we get into it that I've found to be true after getting to dive into his career and chat with him. Uncut Magazine called him a one-man Clash and the unofficial poet laureate of New York City. A one-man Clash is like the coolest review anyone could get for anything. Anyway, this conversation was very inspiring. Willie's full of energy and passion and enthusiasm, and you can hear that in every story he tells. He's excited to tell it. There's this eagerness to it, and I'm excited to share that with you. But before we get to that, let's talk about what Willie has going on. Willie has a new album coming out. It's called The Great Yellow Light. It's going to be available on all streaming platforms as well as CD and vinyl June 20th. If you're looking for the CD and or vinyl, you can go to River House Records. We are going to listen to a tune from the record. This is We Are, Willie Nile and the album The Great Yellow Light. We Are. This is the tune. Willie Nile, the artist. The Great Yellow Light is the album. It's available everywhere. June 20th. Streaming platforms, that is. And River House Records for the vinyl and such. Go to Willie Nile's website for more information. Willie is an incredible writer and an incredible musician and just inspiration, man. Anyway, if you hear anything you like, if you can like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast and any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like Willie and sharing their insight with you. Now, without further ado, this is my conversation with Willie Nile. And kind of on that topic, I wanted to ask you about the Buddy Holly Education Ambassador.
Yeah, yep. Tell me. Yeah,
oh no, so I was going to say, what exactly is that, and how are you involved?
So the Buddy Holly Educational Foundation, the first record I ever bought when I was in fourth grade was a 45 of Buddy Holly's Peggy Sue. I went up to the store with 2 quarters, bought it by myself, first time ever in a record store, and played it 1,000 times. It really affected me. And years later, in 2009, I was in Austin, Texas. Actually, it was 2011 in Austin, Texas. And a friend of mine who was a lawyer and Buddy Holly's lawyer for his estate and for his wife, Maria Elena Holly, he came to see me and he brought her to see me play, and I met her. And she loved my performance. Well, her and Buddy, they lived in New York City for about 6 months. And he used to take his guitar, he loved to walk to Washington Square Park. It was a block away. And she said he'd go there in his pajamas or an overcoat, whatever, at night and play the guitar. Kids would ask him. They didn't know he was Buddy Holly. And he would, show them chords and music and stuff. So they decided, he died at 22. So they decided that, down the road that they would have a Buddy Holly Educational Foundation to help teenage kids learn, that were interested in music, that would help foster their interest. Anyway, so when she saw me play, she said to my friend, I want Willie to be an official ambassador. She said, he reminds me of Buddy and has the same energy as Buddy, something like that. And the Buddy Holly Educational Foundation ambassadors are a who's who. It's Pete Townsend, Roger Daltrey, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Bruce Springsteen, Bono, Edge. It's a hall of, everybody in the Hall of Fame loves, the rockers love Buddy. And a big coffee table book just came out, Buddy Holly, Words of Love. And there's pictures, like it's a big book. And so I'm an official ambassador of the Buddy Holly Education Foundation. And they're located out of Austin, Texas, and in Lubbock, Texas, where Buddy was from. There's a building there, and that's the work they do. I don't know the details of it. I've not gone down to Lubbock, but they gave me a guitar for 2. I had a guitar with like a Buddy Holly replica guitar, but inside had one of Buddy's original frets, guitar frets. And I had that alone for 2 years. And then I went to, they moved them around, and then Dion got it. And they gave me another one. So I've got a permanent guitar, but doesn't have the fret. So yeah, it's quite an honor, considering that Buddy Holly's song Peggy Sue was the first single I bought. That years later, I'm in this huge coffee table book that literally just came out, and called Words of Love. I mean, you can't make that up, you know. It's I love Buddy Holly, and it's pretty cool. He only lived. He died after 6 months of living in New York. He loved New York. He lived. I know his place. It's he's in the 4th floor near 8th Street and 5th Avenue, and he'd lean over the balcony. She said he loved watching the world go by from New York, coming from Lubbock, Texas, which is a very small city. So that's the backstory of the Buddy Educational Foundation as I know it.
Wow, that's incredible. And listening, going through your records, you like in like the most like authentic way, like there's times in certain tunes when you turn a phrase with your voice that I really kind of hear that Buddy influence. So
not a surprise. Yeah.
But it's like, and learning that was your first record, like that makes sense, because that's where, as a musician, that's where you learn it. You learn it from where you hear it. What a like amazing full circle moment! Wow,
really full circle and deeply touching. I mean, there's an event I think in New York on July 10th. I'm waiting to get confirmation for the after party, but there's a book. There'll be in a bookstore that literally just came out. They did an event in London in the end of April, and now they're looking to do an event in the middle of July here in New York, like with maybe Graham Nash, Dion, I forget the other names, some big names, the people that might be showing up. Steve Earle, I forget, but like, yeah, Buddy Holly's beloved musician. That book is really fun. It's like a $56, coffee table book, but it's got pictures and people's, all the different musicians talking about Buddy, and with a lot of pictures and the backstory. It's quite the book. So yeah, humbling really and fascinating. For the first record, I mean, that's full circle. Crazy. Yeah.
So when you picked up that first record, like, were you playing guitar at that point?
No, I was playing piano. I was in the 4th grade. I forget how old I was, 4th graders are, but I started taking piano lessons at the age of 8. My grandfather was an orchestra leader for 30 years in vaudeville. My older brothers played piano, and my uncles, a couple of my uncles. So at these big family parties, which happened frequently, there'd be the piano, ragtime, boogie woogie piano going all through them. It was really a great thing, and there was always music in the house. And so when I bought that record, I mean, the rock and roll hit like a tornado, like a tsunami. The radio, my brothers had the radio on. I had a transistor radio, and Buddy Holly, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino, Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, all the the early greats, the Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly. And Buddy's record, really, that was, Peggy Sue was I must have listened to it 1,000 times on this little plastic turntable I had. Yeah.
And I with that whole list of those influences or those people that were just like everywhere at that time, I gotta imagine that was like, okay, piano is cool, but guitar is cooler.
Well, the thing about that, what was cool was that Fats Domino played the piano, and you'd see him on TV on American Bandstand. Big smile, happy, playing away, and great songs. I'm a walking, yes indeed, I'm a talking about you and me. I'm hoping you'll come back. And then Great Balls of Fire. I mean, Great Balls, Jerry Lewis, good. Give me a break. But so I was totally hooked on music, but I didn't translate to the piano yet. And in high school, I started writing poetry. I had a great English teacher in my junior year, and really opened a world for me of poetry, and so I was writing stream of consciousness poetry, and my junior and senior year, and then in my first year of college, it was funny. I goofed off. I was smart, so I didn't have to study. I just, breezed through high school, partying with my friends, chasing girls, playing sports. It was an afterthought school. I didn't have to study. So when I was in my senior year, I had an 87 average, and I couldn't get into college as I wanted to. And I was from Buffalo, in the local area. So what I did was, one day I went down to the guidance counselor, and I said, I'm having trouble getting into college. And he said, well, there's this college north of Canton, Ohio, that just built a new dormitory that needs students. So all the losers who couldn't get in school went to this dormitory in Walsh College, Canton, Ohio. It was the middle of nowhere, like 5 miles north of Canton, Ohio, and just farm country. It was in the middle of nowhere. And I remember getting dropped off and seeing the car drive away. And I'm thinking, what have I done? And I mean, really, literally the middle of nowhere. What? But the thing is, my roommate had a guitar. And since there was nothing to do, I said, could you teach me how to play guitar? And, he taught me very simply, chords, G, D, E minor, C, just very simple, A. But just a few chords. I mean, D, G, E minor, it's G, D, C, G, D, A. You can play 20,000, 100,000 songs. And I just loved it. And so all my writing then went into, if I had an idea, I would put it into a song. So I started writing songs when I was a freshman in college in Ohio.
Okay. Oh, wow. So a couple questions on that. What did you go to college for initially? Were you going for music?
I went for just liberal arts, a general thing. And I got a major in philosophy. And I think I was one course short of an English degree. I just took courses I liked. It was the late 60s. I graduated in 71. So I just took courses I liked, like the history of art and beauty. I thought, well, that would be great. It wasn't. It was a lousy course, but I transferred that year after I got really good grades, transferred to the University of Buffalo and loved it. It was completely different from growing up it was a Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, pretty restrictive. And the first year of college was a Catholic college, very restrictive. You had to be in by 12 o'clock. It was what? And I went to the University of Buffalo, and the teachers were smoking cigarettes, and it was wide open, and it was so inspiring to me. So I stayed there for, finished my university, and then moved to New York City to try to make records.
That's beautiful. And also, I guess one other question within that, with going back to kind of early influences of poetry, who were some of the poets that you were reading and were influenced by as far as writing go?
Early on, when we were studying English poetry, we were reading about John Keats and Percy Shelley, and we were reading bios of, brief bios of them, and I identify with a lot of the stuff. I said, I do that. I stare at the sunlight coming through the window and daydream, and and a lot of that, their lives, I really identified with. And then I got into Walt Whitman, and the beat poets, Ginsberg, Corso, Bob Kaufman, who was really underrated as one of the greats. And I just found out about him about 10 years ago, and he's amazing. So I love reading the beats, and I saw them. A lot of them came to the University of Buffalo. I saw Ginsberg a bunch of times. Saw Corso once, was amazing. Robert Duncan, Gary Snyder. But it made a strong impression on me. I actually, in New York, I did it. There was a couple of gigs where there were poetry events, and they had some music, and Ginsberg was the host a couple of times. So I met Alan a few times, but yeah, I love the beats. Walt Whitman, he's the godfather of all that stuff. That's my favorite stuff.
Wow.
Song of Myself is just amazing to this day.
Oh yeah. Oh man, what a cool did you so kind of being able to see these guys and and hear from them, did that directly kind of influence some when you were at that point of songwriting? Did that directly kind of influence how you approached songwriting?
Well, it definitely influenced me. Like Leslie Fiedler was the head of the English department. The University of Buffalo had a really great, well-known, highly respected English department, and I used to hang out in the English department all the time. It was a huge university, but the departments weren't huge. It was like there was 30,000 kids going there or something. But the English department was small, and Leslie Fiedler was this great. He wrote he wrote a book called Women in Shakespeare. I saw him speak a few times. Robert Creeley, a famous poet, was one of the. I took a class of his, and he would read. And these people, they would come to the school to read. They could get all the great poets. So that influenced me. Seeing them in the flesh, you know, um, was amazing. I mean, in high school, like I think in my senior year, I saw the Stones came to Buffalo. I saw them in an arena, and so I started going. I saw Jimi Hendrix
Wow.
when I was at the university. I saw Frank Zappa, the Mothers of Invention. So I started seeing, Janis Joplin and the Holding Company, and I started seeing all. The University of Buffalo had all kinds of great uh, musicians come, and totally inspiring. I was writing songs full on at this point. Once I learned to play the guitar, that was it. It was game on. When I was in the first year of college, and when I went back, interestingly enough, when I went, I would hitchhike from on these farm roads with no cars. A lot of weekends to go back and see my girlfriend in Buffalo, 4-hour drive, but it would take me about 6 whatever hours. I'd hitchhike in the middle of nowhere, get up to the thruway, from the Canton up north to 90, and not the thruway, it was 90. And then I climbed down an embankment and under a bridge. I'd stick my thumb out. I'm hitching that doesn't happen anymore. Charles Manson put an end to put to hitchhiking in this country. Literally, he really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And so when I went back, once I started learning the guitar, I sat at the piano in Buffalo, I readdressed it and I retaught myself to play the piano based on chords. Anybody who wants to learn to play the piano, there's this guy that teaches, and this is great news, and it's great information. There's a PBS guy. His name is Scott Houston. He's called the Piano Guy. I don't know that he's on anymore, but if you go to YouTube and you look up the Piano Guy, and you'll look at the videos, and he teaches. I remember I flew to Sweden in the 90s. I used to go every year and do this children's cancer benefit, and the one year I got there, and it's 4 a.m. I'm wide awake watching TV, and there's this guy on PBS, Scott Houston, talking about teaching adults and people to play without scales, without reading notes. It's all chord based. In other words, do you play piano or do you play keyboard?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you hit like a triad, C, E, and G with your right hand, if you just hit that chord, and you could do it with your left hand as well, just hit it once, boom. You can do jingle bells, jingle all the way, and then go up to, I think it's F. Oh, what fun! Back down to. I can teach a kid in 10 minutes, a 6 or 7-year-old, in 10 minutes to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or Jingle Bells, by playing triads, and it blows their mind. Like, oh, I'm playing this song because I'll play it with them, and I can add to it. They can be playing at the high end of the piano, one hand or a triad, jingle bell, and you can mark the piano. Go here, mark the C, mark the F, and mark the G, and just triads. This guy teaches like that, and he can teach adults. I remember playing the piano in the 70s. I was in New Hampshire, and an uncle of mine was behind me on a couch for half an hour watching me play. He was in his 70s. He was a retired policeman. And when I was done, I didn't realize he was watching me, and he said, I'd give anything to be able to sit down and play like that. Well, now I would have told him, if you go on YouTube and look up the piano guy, Scott Houston, and like you can learn so fast, because what he'll do is, you can, like a favorite song of yours, like Let It Be, or whatever song, No Woman, No Cry, pick a song, any modern song by any artist you like. And you can get the chords on, you don't have to buy a book. You can just go online and see what the chords are. And that's how he teaches. And you can learn so fast. And that's really a great tip for any students, teenagers wanting to learn and not having to go through the process of scales, learning notes, reading music. You just read chords. It's way easier. And like as a teacher, you know that. I mean, if you can open a kid up to learning an instrument, however simple, you don't have to have a piano. In the last century, it was a thing where people would like to have pianos in their homes. Well, now you can get little keyboards. You don't find pianos in homes very much. I still, to this day, when I walk into somebody's home or a place, a part of me looks around for a piano. It's just part of me just naturally does, because it meant so much to me. It means so much to me. So I write on the piano. I write on guitar, but by learning guitar and knowing, I knew piano, but I retaught myself on my own style, and I can play stride piano where the left hand plays an octave accord, at the left hand. I can do that till the cows come home. And you can start out simply by playing, this little simple triads in both hands if you want, and then or one hand and sing along, and then learn another one. I mean, you know how it is. If you know 3 chords and put a minor chord in there, you can play anything. Anyway, that was a major. So by learning the acoustic guitar, I went back home and retaught myself, because I could play Beethoven and Chopin a little bit and stuff. I wasn't that good, but I retaught myself, and I started playing rock and roll on the piano, and I started writing on the piano. It was easier to write on guitar, just a handful of chords. You could write a song with 1 chord, 2 chords. Yeah, that was the beginning of my, songwriting. It's great.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because with classical pieces, right, you're learning a bunch of challenging and not challenging, I should say lush movement. There's a lot going on, and it's hard to kind of get the big picture.
Totally challenging.
Where if you learn wait, all these rock and roll tunes are 1, 4, 5. I can do that, and just like you said, I add a minor chord here, and it's there it is.
Kids are into Taylor Swift, whatever, young girls, or whatever's in vogue, whatever, at the time it was Michael Jackson. Now I don't know who it is, Billie Eilish, whatever. There's different, it changes, the party moves. But if a kid can sit in an instrument, either play a guitar, with 2 chords, 3 chords, or a piano, keyboard's even easier because you don't have to hold down strings. And all you need is a small little keyboard. And I mean, what songs do they know? Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Jingle Bells, those 2 songs, or row, your boat, think about it. Like every time I accent, it's a chord. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Chord change. Merrily, merrily, it's, and Ellen Toussaint, the great New Orleans songwriter, composer, musician, who was a friend of mine. He's gone now. Great. He, a buddy of his, they had a label together, bought a piano, was learning at a later age. He retired, and he says, and the advice, he said, start out slow. He said, learn it slow, because it's more important to learn it than it is to play it fast. In other words, jingle bells, just learn it slow. But it's transformative. I have 4 children. They're all grown now, but I taught them all sitting at the piano to play those songs, and I can do this. It's really what do they call it? It's a quantum leap in the realization that I can learn things.
Yeah, no, I agree with that statement 100%, because and it's not only can I learn things, but I'm capable. There's a confidence boost in it.
That's right, major. And the thing is, if you duet, I'd put them at the high end. Just do it, and we could pick up, you could do rock and roll songs, because you can do left hand stuff, right? You play both hands, and they can do one-handed stuff at the front. And I've done it with 3-year-olds, seriously, they can just sit there, and and then at the end of the song, when you slow down to end it, you can over exaggerate, and the dun, 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 and then a big hit, boom. You put your body movement, they can tell what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's transformative. It really is. And this piano guy, that his method is what I do. I saw it and I go, this is exactly what I do. Chords. So if you know any people that are older, they go, oh, wish I could play the piano. Yeah, well, you're 65. You can now. You know.
I wrote them down. That's like, in a thing too. Like people do. Like as a musician, I'm sure you've got it more than anyone. Is people come up, man, I wish I could do that, and like,
yeah.
You can. It's
you can now. It's true. It's that guy's piano method is so easy. Or with you can learn the guitar. A friend of mine during COVID, a dear friend in Edinburgh, Scotland, decided that she would go online and start taking online, just learn to play, and learn to play the guitar, and loves it. It was transformative. It's one thing and she's a retired banker who had a very successful business career, but she loves this more than anything. So, I mean, you know that, you teach, but you also are a musician and play. It's fun. You can express yourself and you get things outside that would not normally, people are, I was driving in Midtown. We were coming back from a radio session, my full band, and we're driving through Midtown to drop off the drummer. And it was like 6 o'clock, 5:30. And there were like, thousands of people on the streets, and they're all coming from work, and you could tell, because they weren't happy. They were looking to get out of there to go home. And like playing music is a joy. It's like, oh, there's a whole other side to life, and learning an instrument can be a major thing, and stream of consciousness poetry writing is a great thing as well. You can say anything. There's no right, there's no wrong. The blue wall. I was looking at the blue wall, the tree outside my window, whatever, there's no right or wrong with that stuff. Again, expressing. And if you can inspire someone to learn to express themselves in whether it's cooking or anything, painting, drawing, writing, taking pictures, playing an instrument, it makes life like a 1,000 times more valuable. I mean, you know that more than any of us. You're in that world, yeah.
Definitely, but you as well, man. You're doing it. You're living it.
Yeah, I'm living it. Yeah, and the music inspires. I make records. I write the songs for myself because they mean something to me, and the palette is large. What I love about it is you can write as a writer. You can write about love, loss, party on a Saturday night, any politics, the good, the bad, and the ugly, anything, the mundane, an ant walking across the ceiling. Any subject is open for whatever, and you can color it any way you want. And so I write songs that mean something to me. And when I have a collection, I can tell I'm pretty good at putting the collections together. That the songs that I don't put filler on my records. Every song is on there for a reason. It means something to me. It's good enough. I don't just put, here's the single, another song, I'll just put some crap on. I don't do that. I made 9 albums from 2009 to 2021. I just was like, every year I'd knock an album off, because I write all the time. And I love it, and it's given my life meaning. And as I tell the band, if it means something to us when we play, there's a chance it might mean something to somebody else. If we're having fun and we're inspired. So my shows are feel-good shows. People walk out leaving a lot more happy than they came in, and that's a good feeling. It's a good feeling, good thing to do. And I've got the ammunition to do it. I have the songs, after all these years. Yeah.
What 2 points. One, going back to with a kind of giving someone the ability to learn something, to express themselves. One thing, I think it plants the seed for enthusiasm, right?
Yes. And
once that's in a person, if it's poetry or guitar, that is an endless source.
Absolutely. And a sidebar to that, while getting that point across, it can happen, but you can also talk about it, saying, you know what, feel the enthusiasm. That's you. That's in you. You have this ocean of possibilities in you, and the corollary of that, when hard times come, and they do, you know that you can help get through them. The thing when I was like hard times, you can learn from them. Even though like, oh my God, my so-and-so just died. I'm so broken, okay, you got to pick yourself up and carry on. But like from the hard times that come, whether it's economic, the financial, emotional, you get your heart broken, you're going to learn from that, and you're going to go forward, and you'll, you get bumped, you get knocked down, like Levon Helm said, you pick yourself up and you go right back again. So the other side of enthusiasm is when hard times come, there's things that you can do to pick yourself up, and you can learn from the hard things in life. That's a good combination. That's a good soup from, and you're dead on right about enthusiasm, showing someone that possibility, and that's always there for you. You can always open that door when you want,
Well, I think that's very well said to bring up the other end of it, because you're right. You're right. That definitely makes that balance. And the other thing I wanted to ask about, so with you, like I totally agree, because like listening to The Great Yellow Light, like all those songs are bangers. Like like everything is like the energy is there, and you could tell each tune is like full-hearted and meant whatever. Like there's no doubt that there's anything like a filler of anything in this. But like,
thank you.
I kind of wanted to pick into like, so are you like, do you write every day? Like, what's that look like?
I only write. I never sit down. Oh, I'm going to write a song. I don't have any kind of schedule. I just, after all these years, I just, like when I was learning to play the guitar and playing, and oh, those two chords together. Oh, maybe the melodies would come. These days, more often than not, I'll have an idea, like an Irish Goodbye, that's on the album. I was a year ago, my daughter, that the phrase went through my head. I can identify if I hear a phrase, somebody will say something, and I'll go, "Hey, that's a song," And now, after all these years, I have a better idea when to pursue an idea than not. It's got a lot easier. And usually, as rockers get older, their inspiration is not as good. That's a generalization, but it kind of is. I'm backwards. This one guy called me the Benjamin Button of rock and roll because mine's backwards. I'm doing more. But I just write when the inspiration strikes me, like an Irish Goodbye. One of my daughters took her two kids and her husband. They went to Ireland. She went to visit her best friend who moved back there before COVID. And they stayed for a week. And my daughter loves all things Irish. She plays Gaelic football. And anyway, so after she got back, we were talking. She had a great time. And I'm in the kitchen, and the phrase "an Irish Goodbye" just went through my head. And I stopped and went, wait, that could be a song. And I went right away, well, what's the chorus? To myself, and I went right away, an Irish goodbye, an Irish goodbye. Here's fire in your whiskey, here's mud in your eye. It's high time to leave here. The angels know why. I'll just say an Irish goodbye. And I went, I'm in. I sat down, started writing it. And so the songs, I'll just come to me, whether it's a phrase, an idea. I might be watching the news, and be inspired or pissed off or whatever. Go, what? Really? And then a song will come, and I have a song I put out in '92 called "Hard Times in America," and I've been singing that at all the shows, and it's I address social issues in a way that seeks to heal, it's the world is like, we could talk about it. I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's a lot of bad stuff. People are starving. The Middle East, Ukraine, Darfur, Sudan, the hunger. People going to bed hungry. The numbers are staggering. In this country as well. And I wrote a song with a buddy once called "The Innocent Ones," and with that in mind, I was writing about kids going to bed hungry at night. And when I sing it at a concert, I'll tell people this is for all the children going to bed hungry around the world. So you can have a party with a band and play and have fun, but you can also get some moments of, reality and deep things in there. That's what I love about it. And this song, we write about it, every single song on this. The first song, Wild Wild World, it's a crazy world out there, and it's a party song about the insanity of it all, but it's got a subtext of deeper things going on, and I love that. It's like a surf party Saturday night, thing, but if you pay closer attention, it's like Susie's off in college, Leroy's out there too, out there seeking knowledge for what good that it can do. Laughter in the Kremlin, chuckles in Versailles, big guffaws in Washington, and I think I know why, because it's a wild, wild world. So you can have fun with it. It can be poignant, you know. It can be like a song like We Are," which is a total anthem. It's a battle cry for liberty, freedom, humanity, compassion, and refusing to give up or give in to the darkness. We just finished a video of it, and it's really, really good, and addresses, you know, it's a total anthem. You know, it's the lead single on the album, and the album's out June 20th, and we put that out last week. And the video is about to come out. We just literally finished it, and Irish Goodbye. You know, it's a song about I wrote about the big Irish goodbye, mortality.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's a dawn in the spirit of celebration. You know. And Paul Brady, the legendary Irish, he's an iconic 77-year-old Irish singer-songwriter, great musician. You know, he's an icon in Ireland, you know, and my producer suggests, why don't we ask Paul Brady to sing on this? He was buddies with Paul, and Paul absolutely loved it, and he did it in 2 days. He did it in Dublin, sent a tape back from Dublin, and, you know, how cool is that, you know? And yeah. And a buddy of mine, former congressman, just lost a son at 26 of brain cancer, and Dan and I were in the studio yesterday doing a radio thing, playing live. And when we were over, I said, let's just turn it way down and get the iPhone out. And we did a version of An Irish Goodbye dedicated to his son, you know, and I sent it to him and the family. And those are moments of meaning. I've had people come up to me after a show. I've seen people crying in the audience singing An Irish Goodbye, because I'll tell them what it's about, you know. And my father's 107, you know, and he's still going, you know, but every day is a miracle with him. And The Great Yellow Light, the title track, that, inspired by Van Gogh's letters to his brother when he moved to the south of France in like 1888, he was blown away by the color, because he came from the Netherlands. You know, it's gray, darker, and he's in the south of France, which is an explosion of color. And I remember reading the phrase, you know, the great yellow light, and it struck me. And I remembered that. So, you know, it's a song for those rare magical moments of awe and wonder that make life worthwhile. Well, you know, it's not about Van Gogh in any way, but it's just, and the artwork itself, the cover art, you know, this guy, a fire eater in a circus, you know, and people looking on, little kids going, oh my God. You know, I'm hoping that this album and these songs can inspire people and put a little bit of light into so much darkness that's going on, you know, even the littlest bit of light, you know, and it can help. And that's enough, even a little bit. Trying to make a living in the USA. The Hooters played on that, the great Philadelphia band, Rob and Eric, came up from Philadelphia to record the last song on the album, Washington's Day. I wrote those lyrics. It was their piece of music, but I wrote the lyrics years ago. They put it out in '88, and I had just been signed to Columbia. Went by the recording studio to play a new song for their producer. They weren't there that day, but they were him and the Angel were mixing Washington's Day. And there was no lyrics. He said, well, we have a title, but no a song. And it was like, I'm in the back listening, and words started coming. And I wrote the lyrics, and they came up. And while they were there, Stuart Lerman, the producer, said, well, while you're here, why don't we throw up another track? And he threw up Trying to Make a Living in the USA. And he said, Eric, what about some banjo? And Eric just picked up a 12-string guitar and started playing a very Birds-like, beautiful, you know, and it's a two-step celebration of the working man and woman, you know. But the songs, like you say, like What Color Is Love? You know, a love song that's colorblind. You know, real love has no limits, no color or otherwise. It's inspiring. You know, Wake Up America. You know, it's a call out to our better angels. You know, it's not left or right. It's about humanity. You know, and what can we do to make something better? We can do better than this. You know, and Steve Earle, God bless him, you know, sings a duet with me on that. I live on Greenwich Village in New York City, and Steve lived for 15 years, a couple doors down, literally, stone's throw. And when I was recording Wake Up America, I asked him, hey, Steve, you want to sing on this? And I get 5 minutes later, I got a text back, I'm in. And he added this beautiful, ragged, gritty voice to it, and the album ends with Washington's Day, It starts out like Romeo and Juliet in Arlington National Cemetery. Washington's Day, it's like July 4th, just another name for it. And it's a prayer for hope, compassion, liberty, and a better world for mankind. So it ends on an up note and a beautiful piece of music. I love the album. I'm really happy with the album in so many ways. It's great to make an album that hopefully can be inspiring, meaningful, and a lot of fun, and maybe throw some light into the darkness.
Definitely. And I think, like, so getting to dive into your whole career, getting ready to chat with you, like, there is a certain, like, electric, there's something about this release in particular that has that, like, kind of upbeat energy with that sense of hope, but that's not, like, put in the sense of your face, like, it's not like preached, but it's just mentioned, which I think, like, makes it, like, more impactful.
More impactful, more effective.
Yeah.
More, it's not soapbox time. It's just like, I'm having fun with it. You can talk about it in a way that's not a turnoff. And this album in particular has threads through it that are full of hope and hopefully humanity and compassion.
And that's the thing that overall doesn't matter if we get into, like how you said, the good, the bad, the ugly of politics. Like, it doesn't matter what angle it is. Like, the ultimate goal is that,
Yeah.
And like, yeah, no, it's a beautiful record, and it's exciting, it's electrifying. It's like it's incredible, and like, I guess one question I had kind of throughout all that was with Washington's Day, and so that was, like, presented to you just with just the title, right? So you're
no, it wasn't even presented to me.
Okay.
Presented. It wasn't saying let's write a song together.
Yeah,
The Hooters, they have a new single out. The Hooters called Pendulum, and they after playing on my record, one of them, Rob Hyman, plays on 6 songs, and he said they were having trouble with it, and they said let's bring Willie in, and we wrote it. It's a terrific song, but in that case, I just went by the studio and was sitting in the back of the room with a producer and engineer working on a mix. And I'm just listening, and I just got inspired. The music was so beautiful, and those words just came out. I hope and I pray that you'll be here with me when the mountains that rise tumble into the sea, when the kingdoms that come set us free on our way. Hope you'll be here with me home on Washington's Day, which is Independence Day. I mean, it's the words just came flowing out. I don't labor over them. I don't, I mean, obviously sometimes they're easier than others, but I just let them fly, and that just tumbled out,
And one thing I find really interesting with your writing, and just, like, from listening to you in other conversations, is, like, you can deliver your lyrics in this way, just like how you did right now, where it reads just like poetry. Mm-hmm. And, like, so I guess my question with that is, when it's coming to you and you're writing them down, are you in your mind reading it like that to yourself? Is it presenting it in that sense? Because that, like,
there's definitely a meter to it. It's the rhythm of the words. Whether you think about that in terms of if it's poetry or it's usually music. I've been the last 2 nights, not last night, but I kept getting out of bed because I've got this song I'm really excited about that came to me 3 nights ago, and I had to get out of bed. If I don't get out of bed and put this down, like, I was putting it in my voice memos. I just went blah 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 blah, and I had a bunch of notes on my on my voice memo on my iPhone, and then in the morning I got up and wrote some things down, and it happened again 2 nights ago, and I don't know, I'm so busy doing stuff I haven't had time to work on it, but they come as there's always a meter to it, there's a tempo to the lines, these days it's more often they're coming to me, the ideas or lines, as opposed to sitting at the piano, where I'll be noodling away and, oh, that's nice, and, oh, what about, just experimenting. I don't have that much time to do it. Same with the guitar. If I'm playing the guitar, I can come up with grooves. A music will come to me in my head. I'll be walking down the street, and maybe the pace of my sound of my boots on the sidewalk, recommends a meter. But it's not. I'm not thinking of it as poetry. It's definitely just a rhythm to the words that are coming to me.
That's fascinating. That's so cool. Like, but it also makes sense in that way where it would line up with whatever you're like. In this case, when you're hearing the demo or the piece they're showing you. Okay, so a couple questions bouncing around. I'm going to tie it back. So you toured with Smiley, the drummer. He played with the Mescaleros.
God bless him. Mike Peters just died. Smiley played with the Alarm and Mike Peters, and Mike Peters was a friend of mine. Fought a 30-year battle with leukemia and numerous kinds of cancer, and really was brave. And worked and played like every day was his last. But the pain he suffered, and he kept going through so many different chemos and radiations, and you name it, and he finally passed. And just the other day, they had his funeral, and a buddy of mine wrote me and mentioned that Smiley was there and said, tell Willie hi, I want to play with him again. Yeah, Smiley, what a sweetheart, great guy. Yeah, he said to me, he says, you and Joe Strummer would have hit it off big time, which meant a lot to me. I'm a big Clash fan.
So how did you? When did you come across the Clash? Did you get to see them or interact with any of those cats?
I saw the Clash. Well, I just heard the Clash when, I forget where it was first, whether it was on MTV or the radio, but right away, that's really good, and the songs were so great and so raw, and like we were saying earlier, you just believe it. They meant it. They really cared. They cared about it. You could tell it wasn't, let's get famous. It wasn't, let's become idols. It wasn't about that. They were coming from a deeper place. I never was in this to become famous. Was never a pursuit of mine. I don't care about fame. Money, sure. Stinking rich, I'd handle it. I'd take that. Because I think I'd be a good rich guy. I'd do good stuff with it. But it was never about fame. And the Clash clearly were not. They were, 4 kids with, a burr in their saddle. And it came across, and I loved the Clash. I saw the Clash, in 1980 when my first record came out. I got to tour across the U.S. with the Who. Pete Townsend was a big fan of my first record, and they wanted, they invited me to open up, and I had never been. I just started playing with a band. I came here in '72, and I was broke as a church mouse, and I was just playing acoustic guitar and open mics, and I was playing rock and roll, but I couldn't afford anybody, and I did not want to join a group. I just wanted to play my own songs. I never did cover songs. I do them now for fun because I never got to do that. So I'm not a kid who grew up in high school bands and college bands. I was just writing. I was coming up as a writer and songwriter. And then I moved to New York and just started jumping on stage for the first time and open mics. And so I got signed to Arista, and I was playing at Kenny's Castaways on Bleecker Street. I was opening act 6 nights. You get a gig for 6 nights a week. I wasn't headlining. It was just starting. This was 6 years later, actually, not just starting. But was having regular gigs at Kenny's Castaways. And one day, Robert Palmer of the New York Times called the club and spoke to the manager, who's Don Hill, who eventually had a great legendary club here in the city. But he was managing Kenny's, and he took the call and Robert said, I want to come and review the headliner. What time does he go on? And he said, well, it goes on at 9, but you want to come early. You need to see the opening act. God bless him. He championed me on the phone, and Robert came early and wrote this incredible review in the New York Times that just changed my life. That there was 10, the day that 2 days later, the review came out, comparing me to, Bob Dylan and Buddy Holly and Gene Vincent. It was incredible write-up, and there was 10 record companies there. I signed to Arista Records, and so I was only used to playing solo. Next thing I know, I could sign this major label, and I rehearsed with the band for 4 days. We made a record in 2 weeks, and I'm on tour across the U.S. for the first time ever playing with a band. And it was a ball. I had no trouble transitioning. But I'm playing this 200, 300 people. And next thing I know, we ended the tour in Los Angeles at the Roxy. And Freddie Mercury's in the audience. and Graham Parker. People, it was packed. People came out to see the new Hot Shot. Who's the new Hot Shot, next big thing from New York. And we were having fun, and the Who's management were there, came backstage and offered me the tour. So now instead of playing in front of 200 or 300, I'm playing in front of 20,000. It was an arena tour, 15,000, 22,000, in that range, and it was so much fun. I just took it head on. And so I love playing, and so 2 years later, to answer your question, the Who came through Buffalo, and the Clash were opening up, as was David Johansen, another good friend of mine who died January. And I watched the Clash from the side of the stage. It was incredible, and Joe had the mohawk, and they were great. And they came off, and then the Who were on. I was standing by the side of the stage watching the Who, and standing next to me is Mick Jones of the Clash, and I looked up before they started playing. I go, "Hey Mick, I'm a big fan. I'm Willie Nile." He goes, "I got your records. I love your work."
Wow.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
You never know who's going to hear your stuff. That meant a lot to me.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, oh man, so those are huge jumps from going from. Was there I guess from
Kenny's Castaways on Bleecker Street playing 6-string guitar. I mean, I was introducing imaginary people behind me, William Shakespeare on bass, Buddha's on drums tonight, whatever. And I'd be jumping off the stage to end the song, because I was carrying on. But then all of a sudden have a full band, bringing the songs to full power and life. And then all of a sudden traveling all across the U.S., opening up for the Who. And I'm a huge Who fan. There's another thing I would say that I say often. There's something to be said for believing in your dreams. You never know where they're going to take you. You just never know. And it's worth following them. Just do the best you can. And my dad says often, all you can do in this life is do the best you can. Do your best. And he would say, leave the rest in God's hands, but just give it your all. Do your best, and, and take what comes. But I believed in my dreams, and I took a huge risk coming here. I raised 4 kids on fumes. I walked away I walked away from the record business in 82. I was when I had legal problems with a lawyer, a former manager, and it was killing my buzz. And I said to my wife, "Let's get out of here. They're killing my buzz. I didn't come here for this. I came here for music and joy." And we left town. I moved to Buffalo, and was in basically musical oblivion. I was writing all the time, so I actually, I woodshed it, and I really grew as a writer for those years. And then got signed to Columbia in 88 and put a record out in 91. So it's been a circuitous journey, but there is something to be said for believing in your dreams. You never know where they'll take you. In the hard times that I've been through, because everybody has hard times, whatever job, shoemaker, Wall Street, big shot, whatever, Michael Jackson, everybody has their hard times, and I learned from them, and it made me stronger. And if you'd have told me I'd be singing with Ringo Starr, I got to open for Ringo Starr in the Northeast for half a dozen dates, so whatever, 8 dates. And then last night he came over to me before his encores to thank me for opening up for him. What a classy thing. And he's still in the middle of his show. He comes off and goes, "Great job, Willie. Thanks so much. Why don't you come out and sing? I get by with a little help from my friends." The next thing I'm out there with Ringo Starr. I mean, singing a Beatles song. You can't make that up. And that's just because I never gave up.
Yeah.
I was too dumb to know better, basically.
Wow, that's incredible. But I think what your dad said and what you said is no doubt 100% the truth, and I think that is really well said advice. And so one thing, I guess that's what a wild another turn of circle, or a completion of the circle, to be up there with Ringo.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
And not only that, But like, so in 1980, I toured with the Who across the U.S., and they toured in 22. And I sent an email to the manager, Bill. Hey, have you got any open dates? So I got to play with the Who at Woodstock in
Wow.
22.
Yeah.
Talk about full circle, and we filmed it. There's a guy making a documentary about me in this journey, and talk about full circle from 1980 to 2022. Here we are in front of 20,000 people up in Bethel Woods, which is basically where they played. That's Woodstock. And it was amazing. And yeah, you can't make this stuff up. It's just, you just do the best you can, give it all you got, and see where it takes you, And my journey has taken me now to the great yellow light, which I'm so, so proud of and so happy about,
Well, and it's an incredible work, and it definitely is weighed in all that experience to this point.
Yeah.
Also,
still learning.
Well,
Yep.
definitely, and like Willie, I really appreciate your time. I got a few more questions, and I'll let you go here.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate your time as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Also, I want to just add on to like not only following it, but being in these places. Like, don't necessarily have to show up to the Clash gig where you're not playing, but you were there,
Yep.
Or like same thing, like something similar like that happened with you with Bruce Springsteen, right?
Well, I met Bruce in '91. I put a record on in Columbia, and I was out in California. I was doing press. No shows, just press. And I was staying at the Sunset Marquis Hotel. It's a big rock and roll hotel. And then one day I was walking with a promo guy from Columbia, walking through the pool area on the way to an interview. And Patty Scalfa, Bruce's wife, was there having lunch. Calls out, Willie. I knew her from 1980, 81, when she used to sing with Southside Johnny. And she called me over and she said, me and Bruce, we love your new record. We work out to it every morning. It's really great. Are you doing a show? We'd love to see you. So I didn't meet him that day, but not long afterwards, he did a show in New York. And my son was working at the Bottom Line. And I said, tell Patty I said hello. And she said, tell him to come on over. Bruce wants to say hi. So I went over and met Bruce, and we've been friends. She's been very generous, inviting me on stage numerous times. He's joined me on stage numerous times. There's a there's a Parkinson's benefit that we do every year for 25 years now. And Bruce has been a part of like 13 or 14 of me come play for an hour and a half. It's great. And he's played with me every time, he plays with other musicians, and he's just a great guy. And I played with him at Shea Stadium in 2003, 60,000 people going nuts. And I'm up there for half an hour playing with him. And then in 2010, I forget when it was. No. It was, yeah. And when they closed, whenever they closed Giant Stadium, he was playing Giant Stadium, and I got a phone call inviting me to come out and join him. If he played 5 nights to close the stadium, and I'm on stage in front of 70,000 fans. It was so loud. They were going nuts. And it's a Bruce show, and it was so much fun to be on stage with him. And the guys in the E Street Band are all buddies. I know them, and they're great guys, great band. So, even as I'm telling the story, I say to myself, you can't make this stuff up. And that's why I say there's something to be said for believing in your dreams,
That 100%. And Fred Smith was in one of your first bands?
Oh, yeah. Fred Smith, God bless Fred. He was Fred Smith played with Television, which was my favorite of the bands that played CBGBs. They were just so great. I would go see Patti Smith and Television play, co-bills at CBGBs, and it was just magic. And Fred Smith, I knew J.D. Doherty, from hanging in CBGBs. And so when I was putting my first band together, I had J.D. Doherty and there was 2 guys from a band from the Criers, a band from Mississippi, and a guitar player from Boston, Peter Hoffman. And what a great band. And then Fred Smith came in, and when I was making the second record, Tommy Etheridge I think he moved to back to Mississippi, and Fred Smith played bass. So when I toured with the Who, I had J.D. Doherty, Fred Smith, and 2 great guitar players. It was so much fun. Fred Smith is a great guy and a great bass player. Yeah.
Incredible. Did you, because you were hanging out around the CBGB scene.
Oh yeah, from the beginning.
Yeah.
I played there before it became the punk mecca.
Yeah.
I played there acoustically solo. Yeah, it was at the time when it first opened. There was a black jazz pianist, and I went in one day, and I'm looking at the paper, looking for places to play, and I see this place called CBGB's, and I thought, I like the ad. I like I like the look of it. So I got my guitar, walked down Bleecker Street to the Bowery. I think it was a Tuesday afternoon. And I walked in and said to the bartender, how do you get to play here? Who do you talk to? And she said, well, that would be Hilly. He's in the back. Just wait. He'll be out. So I sat down, got a beer. I'm sitting waiting. 20 minutes goes by, nothing. So I go over to the jukebox. They had a great jukebox. And I noticed the last 2 songs on the jukebox, the last single in there was by this guy named Hilly Crystal. And I thought, how many Hillys are there? So I put about $5 of quarters in, and I kept playing. I played the same song over and over. So I sat back drinking my beer, and the same song kept playing. So after about 7 or 8, about the 8th or 9th time the song played, out from the back comes, I clearly woke him up. And this grizzly bear of a man comes out with a beard. What the? He's annoyed. What the hell? Who's playing that song over and over again? And I walked up to him. I go, hey, are you Willie? And he goes, yeah. I go, I like your song. And he just looking at me like with being mute, like, what? And I said, how do you get to play here? I had my guitar. I go, well, get on stage and play. This is the afternoon. So I played a couple songs. And he goes, you're hired. So I played there, and I did a couple of shows, and I played there, and I think a month or 2 later, Tom Verlaine of television and Richard Lloyd went in there and asked if they could, set up a stage and start playing a residency there, and they did, and that was the beginning of what became the punk scene worldwide, actually, because that's the UK scene followed the scene in New York, and it was amazing, and I went there all the time. I mean, I saw Patti Smith on television. I saw the crowd build, the Ramones, the Cramps. It was just fascinating. I was there the night that Johnny Rotten, John Lydon was there. For the first time. And I saw him just walking around, looking around, checking it out. And I saw when Elvis Costello was there for the first time. And I said hi. It was a fascinating scene. And I'm so grateful that I got to experience that. It was like I used to call my friends. Like television would be on stage playing Marquee Moon, and there was a phone by walking the place. There was a phone booth, and at the far end and then you walk all the way past the bars of stage, and they'd be playing Marquee Moon, and the place was levitating. And I would go on the phone like 1:30 in the morning, call a buddy in Buffalo and hold the phone. Listen to this. You got to come to New York. It's like the Beatles in Hamburg. You got to come. And nobody came. And a lot of the folkies, I would say, go to CBG. Nobody came, but I did. And it was great. So I had a foot in both circles, the acoustic world and the rock world, but I was always rocking. I like have a lot of styles of music that I like and make use of. But at the end of the day, I'm a rocker.
Was there a similar like excitement that you found like with like Buddy Holly and some of these early rock records that you kind of saw in that scene in particular?
Oh yeah, you could tell. There's a great Hemingway book called A Movable Feast, and it was published after he died, and I read it. I didn't read it until after I was out of college. Not sure why, but it's a short read. It's about his life in Paris in the 1920s. A Movable Feast. It starts out with him boxing in the morning with Picasso, and then he goes to lunch in Belgium with a friend, and then in the evening he's in Gertrude Stein's salon with all these other, it's life in the 1920s in Paris and thereabouts, and all these, soon to be legendary, painters, writers, all whatnot, lunatics. And it's a great, interesting read. But the notion of something, a movable feast. Life is rock and roll music. Life is a movable feast. That's why even the village changes. Sometimes there's things happen and sometimes there's not. Greenwich Village, and like sometimes the parties it's in the Mississippi Delta. Sometimes it's in Liverpool, London, New York, Seattle, Boston, Atlanta. The party moves. And I like that notion that life itself is a movable feast, and there's ups and downs, and sometimes there's things happen and sometimes they're not. So I could tell, first of all, as a kid who saw Elvis Presley on television, my brothers, knew they had to have the TV on, and I watched American Bandstands. I caught all the early days of rock and roll, and the British invasion and all the amazing 60s music, 70s, whatnot. I caught all that, and I could tell the intensity. I was at Woodstock, the original Woodstock. I was on my way to see my brother's wedding. We're driving on a Friday, and his buddy was driving me and my girlfriend. And he said, "Hey, you know what? There's this thing called a festival." The word wasn't even in the lexicon. And the Who were playing, and Hendrix. I go, "The Who? Let's go." So we made a detour, and we got there, and I mean, the rest is history. It was like that we even got the car into the place, that we even made it there. And we only could stay for a day. We stayed the first day overnight, because the wedding was the next day. So we're leaving on Saturday, like about midday, at 11 o'clock, and people are coming in by the tens of thousands. And it was amazing. So I've seen moments when the intensity level is at high pitch, the early days of rock and roll, for Elvis, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, Everly Brothers, the British invasion was like wildfire, and even John Kennedy, when he was president, inspired the youth. I think he's responsible for what happened in the 60s. I think he created the Peace Corps. It's not what you can do for your country can do for you, it's what you can do for your country. He inspired. I mean, I was prime age, when rock and roll hit, and that he inspired people to think, hey, we can do good in this world. We could be the good guys. Let's help each other. That was inspiring. And then the British Beatles came after he got murdered, and the 60s happened as a result of that, and it got obviously co-opted by Madison Avenue and disappeared into the winds. And the Madison Avenue and the money power brokers, corporate took over again, and it ebbs and flows. But I could tell with at CBGB's the intensity, the passion. All these kids came out of the woodwork. All these like loners, offbeat people, losers, whatever, brilliant geniuses, the good, the bad, and the ugly came out of the woodwork and came to New York because it was a magnet here, and that moves. And so I knew from there was a similarity from the mid '50s, the late '50s when that all happened, in the early '60s with the British invasion and all the music that happened then, and Dylan, it's just all these transformative things happened. Great writers, Leonard Cohen, Tom Waits, the Ramones hit. I mean, the Ramones toured 20 years in a van.
Yeah.
And they all died like around age 50. There was one left. Marky's still around. He was not in the original foursome, but he was early on. He's a friend of mine. Love Marky. And, they would have been playing stadiums, and you just got to go with the flow as best you can. But the intensity moves. And to answer your question, I knew then, I knew totally at CBGB's that this was something special, and it was great.
The movable feast, I think that was beautifully said.
Yeah. Hemingway, man. God bless. That was a movable feast is what it is. Yeah. I
agree. One last question, and I really, really appreciate your time, Willie. I just was wondering, because I listened to another interview getting ready to talk with you. How are your fingers feeling from that? There was this when you were lost power in the cold.
They're still my three fingers on my right hand still have a buzz. Like obviously there was some nerve damage. I took my glove off for 20 minutes 20 seconds.
That's crazy.
Well, I was shoveling the first day.
Yeah.
Like when the storm hit, the blizzard of 22, I think it was 22. When the blizzard hit, was it 23? I can't remember. Anyway, my dad was 105 at the time. I'm 77 and I'm done Friday. So I'm like, I'm still lucky to be here. And I went out to shovel because it was like sideways. It was 80-mile-an-hour winds. So minor hurricane, 8 degrees. I went out to shovel, and I just had on regular gloves like an idiot. And after about 15 minutes, my hands were freezing. I went back in. It took a while for them to warm up, and we were out of power was gone, and no heat, no light, and we had a gas fire, but no wood to put in it. So we had light from the fireplace. We sat around it, my brother and I, fully dressed to go, sledding and covered with sleeping bags. Just looking at the color light. It was really rough. And I did a video clip that it's out there somewhere of, hi, it's Christmas Eve, it's Willie, and you could see my breath like 3 feet away. It was so cold in the house, and I went out. I shoveled. I stopped the first day, and then forget shoveling. It was like 5 feet drifts in the driveway, and I went next door to knock on the neighbor. My phone was dying, and then the neighbor had 3 cars that were shoveled out, and I didn't know the guy, because I live in New York. I was visiting for Christmas holidays, and they didn't answer the door at first. It was at night, some figure dark outside their door. What's this about? Then he answered the door. Great guy. He's a Marine, turns out. Ex-Marine with a family. And I said, look, I'm next door. My dad's 105. My phone's dying. Is there any way? And they said, we have something inside. We have a little generator. We'll charge it for you. When I picked up the phone, I said, can I have your phone number in case I need you? And he said, oh, I'll give it to you later, or when you pick up the phone. And I said, I'll take it now. So I took my one glove off and typed it in. It was off for about, 20 seconds. And since then, it's been a couple of years now, my 3 fingers I can play the piano, I can play the guitar, but it's a nonstop, like vibration through those 3 fingers in that right palm, right in my palm. And listen, I got lucky. So it's early damage, but it's fine. It's no big deal. But yeah, so that clip I took of my dad, I don't know how you'd find it, Willie Nile and dad, his father, on Inside Edition. They didn't identify me as Willie Nile. But if you go to YouTube or go back to wherever, anyway, I don't know how to find it, but like I did a clip. Hey, we had plenty of wine on hand, fortunately. So I had a glass of wine in my hand, and I'm doing a selfie. Hey, to my fans, hey, everybody, my friends, I'm in Buffalo. It's like 37 degrees in the house. We're freezing, and just want to let you know what's going on here, And I showed him out the window, the drifts. And my dad, you got a message for people? And he turns and he goes, holds up his glass. He goes, and he's covered with a sleeping bag, hat, gloves, scarves. He goes, we're having a blast. And holds up his glass. And the 2 nights later, the next night, I found this out later that Inside Edition, they were doing a thing on the storm in Buffalo. And they said, meanwhile, there's this guy. And they cut to me going, hi, it's Willie. I'm here with my dad. They did it. They edited it, but like it inside. I mean, you can't make that shit up. And I know. So the fingers are all right, to answer your question. But yeah, that was quite the experience. We got rescued 3 days later by firefighters who had a snowcat. Like they weren't wheels. It was like a tank. And they came and got us, took us to a warming center, and saved our lives. It was fascinating. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad the fingers are good, because
me too. Thank you.
And I'm glad your dad's doing good too. That's incredible, man.
Knock on wood. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dave. Thanks for taking the time and I love talking to you. I love your questions, and I really love and admire the work you do. That I can tell you're a good teacher. You can teach and inspire and just help people. That's a pretty great thing. Better to give than to receive. Well done, brother. Well
thank
done.
you. Thank you. It's like, as someone who does something like this, we need inspiration, and that's where, like, I want to thank you for the constant, endless source of inspiration. So, and thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave. ever onward, both of us, moving forward. Trying to inspire, trying to find the light. Here's to us, brother. Here's to us, and thank you so much.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig At The Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.